Today on Medill Newsmakers, we take an in-depth look at the Cubs' contributions to Chicago high school baseball.
Without the Cubs, where would we be?
And we visit Kerry Wood Cubs Field, where a former player is bringing America's pastime to a new level. All of this and more, next. Hello, my name is John Alphys, and welcome to this edition of Medill Newsmakers. Today we take a look at the Chicago Cubs in Chicago high school baseball. It starts at Kerry Wood Cubs Field, the place Lakeview High School and Lane Tech College Preparatory High School call home. In Chicago, America's pastime extends beyond the ivy walls of Wrigley Field. The Cub, an icon in the city of Chicago. You see it at the ballpark, on the street, and in the store. But the Chicago Cubs are more than just a team, as their presence is felt in ways that are bigger than baseball.
The Chicago Cubs, specifically Cubs Charities, has created and will fund a Ramiro Calixto Scholarship Fund for the Lakeview High School senior, a baseball or softball player. They will do this annually.
Ramiro Calixto was a former baseball player at Lakeview. After Calixto suddenly passed away in September 2018, the Chicago Cubs funded a scholarship in his name this past April. Calixto's family threw out the first pitches during a commemorative ceremony.
On behalf of my family and all of Ramiro's friends, I want to give our sincerest thank you to Lakeview staff, coaches, and players for honoring your student and teammate. And to Mr. Hoyer and the entire Chicago Cubs organization, thank you for your generosity, which will help keep my little brother's spirit alive in all our hearts. Thank you.
But tonight, I'm sure what's going to go on after this is done is going to be something that'll be very well understood and a reward that'll be with the family, the schools, and everybody for years to come.
The Cubs' generosity doesn't stop there either. The organization partners with the Chicago Park District, creating a rookie league for children ages 6 to 9. The league is free of charge and is running in 96 locations for 521 teams. Inner City Youth Baseball also has recreational activities for over 250 kids between the ages of 9 and 12. Players from the Lakeview High School team grew up in Chicago, where these Cubs programs helped them grow to become better players at baseball's higher levels. Outside of the Cubs, the White Sox have also opened the gates to Guaranteed Rate Field, where the Chicago Public League Championship took place. These memories last a lifetime. The Chicago Cubs also take part in the Reviving Baseball in Inner Cities program, also known as RBI. Cubs Care helps fund this baseball league, which provides uniforms, baseball gear, and instructional activities for about 300 kids between the ages of 13 and 18 in poor communities. Next on Medill Newsmakers, we take a deeper look inside a multi-million-dollar project made possible by a former Chicago Cubs pitcher. Stay right with us. Plenty more to come after this.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Northwestern break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
Kerry Wood is a retired baseball player, a former Chicago Cubs pitcher who struck out as many as 20 batters in one game. Now, his name arches over a baseball field, a facility made possible by his own foundation, the Chicago Cubs and others. Here is the story behind Kerry Wood Cubs Field.
I've known Kerry for a handful of years now. We used to do camps years ago on the south side. We did a family youth camps on the south side. He's always been a guy who's given back to this city.
Kerry Wood is a former two-time All-Star and face of the Cubs franchise. Now, his name lives above a state-of-the-art field, bringing quality high school baseball into focus for schools like Lakeview and Lane Tech. From the burgundy turf to the yellow foul pole, Kerry Wood Cubs Field delivers.
Without the Cubs, where would we be? We sure wouldn't have all the resources that we do have at the present time. They donated to help with the turf that's in front of the school. They donated to help refurbish a weight room that was in shambles. In all reality, provide those opportunities for us. Helping with the Kerry Wood Field, getting that put together, that's been monumental. It's a level 1 facility in the city of Chicago for high school baseball. It's nicer than suburban stadiums or anything of that nature. It's just, we wouldn't have those opportunities if it wasn't.
I love playing here. It's the best. All of my friends, they say you guys are so lucky you get to play here every home game. I love it.
Without the Cubs and these opportunities, baseball would not be what it is in Chicago, that's for sure.
Today we welcome in Brian Gilbert, a beat writer, digital content creator for the Lakeview High School Wildcats baseball team. Brian, thank you again for joining me, and welcome to Medill Newsmakers.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Now, a few weeks ago, you were at the Lane Tech Lakeview game. It was played at Kerry Wood Cubs Field, a big rivalry game, a lot going on there. First, what were your initial impressions of Kerry Wood Cubs Field? What did you think of that field?
I mean, yeah, it was definitely state of the art. I had the pleasure of covering Lakeview pretty much their entire season, and so that was actually my first time at Kerry Wood Cubs Field this season. And I heard rumors, that it was very nice, it was state of the art, but once you get there and once you see it, it kind of hits you for real, because the size of it is probably something I've never seen it for a high school team to have. The concrete, the roof structure, the lights, the artificial turf, it's definitely makes me appreciate the resources that they have, and it's something that I think if other schools can model themselves after something like that, if they have the resources and the funding, that'd be great. Because I think it definitely gives you an extra boost if you're playing on a field like that.
You mentioned the artificial turf, of course. When it rains, it doesn't affect the field. It doesn't affect the playing surface. We're in Chicago, so when it does rain, it really makes it tough for games to be scheduled, but not at Kerry Wood Cubs Field. Just how nice is it to have that playing surface where, through the Cubs donations, where they can play regardless of what the weather is most of the time?
That's definitely huge, because as we all know, in Chicago, it can rain any hour for an hour, or it can change within the hour. So that's huge, because I was talking to the coach mainly throughout the season, and I would always text him kind of before the game, like, hey, are they going to play today? It's raining. And he would say, if it stops raining 15 minutes before the game, the field will be fine. And that's mainly due just, I think, to the drainage, to the artificial turf. And so that gives the teams a huge advantage, because most teams have to, if they don't have like the artificial turf, if they have a kind of a regular field, they usually have to cancel their game, postpone it, and so they might not be able to get as many games in the season. And so I think if you're, that's just a huge advantage if you're able to play more, you're able to kind of have that advantage just because of the resource they have there. But yeah, I think that's definitely huge.
Teams that share the field are Lakeview High School and Lane Tech. Two of the better teams in the conference. There's a rivalry there. What do you think it's like for them to share such a great facility? You never want to share a home field, but when it comes at a field like that, it's very convenient. Just that rivalry and having that field to share. What do you think that means to those programs?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's something new to me, where you have multiple teams sharing one facility, and then the Lane Tech, the actual high school, is located on the facility, like basically 2 feet away from the facility. So the rivalry is interesting, because when Lakeview has the home field, it doesn't really feel like their home field, because Lane Tech, the proximity is right there. So you have all the fans, you have all the students, you have even faculty showing up to give support to Lane Tech. And so even though it's a home team for a home game for Lakeview, it really doesn't feel like that. And I think that's something interesting because of the proximity of the school. But I think that also adds to the rivalry, because it's kind of like, who's winning the conference, whose field is it? It's kind of like a pride thing, and then also kind of a obviously it increases the competition and everything like that. But it's definitely I think it definitely adds to the rivalry, and it definitely and I think the Kerry Wood Cubs Field, like playing at that field motivates the rivalry even more, just because it's so nice. Yeah.
The Cubs logo's everywhere at that field, on the scoreboard, on the entrance. For a bunch of players who are on the north side, what do you think it means to them to play for the team they probably always grew up rooting for?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, that's huge. Because the Cubs basically have their brand on top of the field, that I think that it definitely adds a little bit of motivation, a little bit more energy, because you feel like you're playing for not just the high school, but a bigger organization bigger than you. And so you kind of have to be very prideful of where you're playing, but you also have to be very, you have to kind of show a lot of gratitude as well to kind of the fact that the Cubs are able to give you a facility like that. And so I think that's special. And I don't know if the White Sox are able to do something like that, because I think that would be probably really good for the community as well. Because I think it just definitely it makes it a community, but it brings people closer together too. Even though it's just high school sports, it's still something that's bigger than us.
My last question is, what is your favorite moment at Kerry Wood Cubs Field? I know you've been to a few games, one season there. Just from being the content creator and getting all these images and videos there, what's your favorite moment?
I have a lot of favorite moments. I think one that it's not necessarily my favorite moment, but one that stands out to me was it was the playoff game. It was actually the semifinal game against Simeon. There was a rain delay that lasted about an hour, and unfortunately they had to suspend the game because there was another moment coming in there. But it was interesting at that moment because of the Kerry Wood Cubs Field, because it's how safe and protected it is when there's lightning or when there's thunder or even rain. Basically, like the fans and even the team from both teams were kind of huddled together under the Kerry Wood Cubs Field, and they were kind of talking to each other, like just making small talk, whatever. But it's just like that little moment was just very, I don't know, just thought it was interesting because they kind of put their competition, the rivalry, the game aside, was able to kind of come together and be like, hey, we're going to get through this delay, kind of the storm delay together. But yeah, I thought that was definitely one of the more interesting moments, and I was able to capture that with my camera and kind of was able to talk about that as far as like, two separate schools competing for one cause, but coming together because they kind of are forced to. But no, I think that was probably one of my favorite moments.
Recreational leagues and the general public are also able to use Kerry Wood Cubs Field and play baseball throughout the spring, summer, and even into the fall. Without the financial support of Kerry Wood and the Cubs, a staple of Chicago high school baseball would simply not be a reality. Do not go anywhere. Next, we take a look at Major League Baseball as a whole and examine the contributions of a professional team outside the city of Chicago. We'll be back shortly. Major League Baseball teams around the country have made an impact on high school baseball, a contribution that extends beyond the Windy City. The Cubs are helping programs like Lakeview and Lane Tech. Where else do we see these kinds of contributions? How about we take a look and find out? The Cleveland Indians hold an annual high school hardball classic. High school teams from around Northeast Ohio get the opportunity to play at Progressive Field, the home of the 2016 American League champions. Cleveland Indians Charities, or CIC, began in 1989 and provides children with opportunities in the classroom and on the baseball field. Almost 20,000 students benefit from the CIC program across Northeast Ohio. CIC has donated more than $10 million over the last 30 years, an encouraging trend that figures to rise even more in the coming years. And those are just two of the 30 Major League Baseball organizations. The stories, donations, and lifelong memories made possible by the game's greatest franchises are endless. The Chicago Cubs were 2016 World Series champions, but the team's contributions away from the field make an impact every day. Don't believe me? Just head a mile west of Wrigley Field and see for yourself. That will do it for this edition of Medill Newsmakers. Up next, Andre Turan will give us an inside look at the state of black baseball in Chicago.